again, everybody. It's Bobby Gaines in front of the TV that I popularly watch Red Sox games in front of. And later this month, and we'll see how long it goes, I'll be watching some NBA playoff games. Won't that be fun? But before I get to that, basically I want to talk about something that is it's an ongoing debate in baseball right now. That is the addition of instant replay, something that has been long overdue, I think. And this is the first season they're using it for more plays, not just home runs. So pretty much, I don't want to say everything, but most plays, trapping, outs at first base, outs at all the bases, force outs, tag outs, whatever the case may be, are now reviewable. So if an umpire makes a call that seems a little off, the manager can have it reviewed only a certain number of times a game, and, there's still some kinks to be worked out. I'm here to talk about some of that, but also, let me just say, even though it's not perfected yet, the replay system, I love the idea of the replay. I mean, I can't be an advocate of the system and then say I don't like it because it's had a rough couple of weeks. I love the replay system. If for no other reason, then it just makes the umpires look bad. And I don't think I'm the only one who's been waiting a long time to see the umpires look bad. The umpires, and again, I realize that all manner of sports officials get criticized. NFL refs get, yelled at by people. And, same with the NBA, the NHL. Things in other sports, though, they're more about penalties. Like in football, there'll be a play where the guy will go to the ref, I didn't do that, I didn't touch that guy. Or same in the NBA, I didn't foul him, I didn't do this. In baseball, it's not so much that they're arguing a foul or anything, because they don't have those. They have foul balls, but they don't have penalties. They do, but they're not the same. So in baseball, they're just arguing, hey, look, I threw the ball over to the guy, and he caught it before the guy crossed the bag. It's pretty black and white. But these umpires, for years, decades, I'm not even exaggerating, have stood by some of the most heinous calls in history. Some of them have been more well noted because they cost people big games, but even just think of it day to day, because baseball is played so often. How many calls, not even talking about balls and strikes, which is another issue, but how many calls have altered a game somehow? How many innings have gone on longer because an umpire ruled someone was safe when they should have been out? How about last year for the Red Sox, not even going to touch that obstruction call, which I'm still pissed off about, but during a regular season game against the Tampa Bay Rays, which luckily the Red Sox ended up winning the division anyway, but there was a play at the plate in which they called the Tampa runner safe. He really should have been out. It was a 1-1 game in the 8th, and it was a very close play, but Salto Amakia blocked the plate, and it was crap. Then the Red Sox lost the game 2-1. If they cut that run down, it's only 1-1. You still don't know what happens. But again, even last night, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Umpires, this just ends. You'd think it will end. There's still some arguments. Managers are still being ejected. But in a way, it does end kind of the old Stonewall argument mentality, which I just really hated all these years, how these umpires can make such terrible calls. And not even that. We all make mistakes as people. But then they just stand there, and they yell at you. They go, no, that was the right call. No, that was the right call. And no one, very rarely, I shouldn't say never, but 99.9% of the time, you're not going to win an argument with a Major League umpire. There's no point. You can argue with the refs in other sports, as long as you don't, assault them or anything. You can argue with them. You can kind of, joke with them. You can, say, oh, what was that call about? And you don't get thrown out of the game. The holier-than-thou umpires, though, you can't touch them. You can't even argue balls and strikes. That's just a rule for some reason. Even if you're completely right, you can't go, that wasn't a strike. You're out of the game. How dare you say I'm wrong? And yet we look at some of the things, even on replay, even on the ESPN strike zone, and you can see how often they're wrong. They're wrong a lot for a group of people who act like they're always right. It's one thing if you're going to say you're always right and you're right 90% of the time. They're right maybe half the time. And they sit there and go, I don't know. Looked like a strike to me, so I'm right. You're not. Get over it. And, that's fine. You want to cost people games. But here's the thing. If the umpires, want to have a case here, and, they're making the majority of calls right? This replay might overturn one or two things, but it's not going to be that big a deal. It's just a way to give the managers their peace of mind. Well, how about this? So far in Major League Baseball, in the short time that there's been a regular season in 2014, there have been 89 challenges by managers. 89. Now, that just sounds like they're challenging a lot. Out of those 89, 33 have been upright, just outright confirmed. The umpire was right. It was a close play, but the umpire was right. There were another 22 that fell into this gray category. this gray category of unattainable, inconclusive. In other words, they reviewed the play. There wasn't enough evidence, either by camera angle or by whatever, to overturn the umpire. Fine, I get that. They do that in the NFL as well on certain calls. 30 of the calls were just completely wrong. So in other words, they looked at the umpires. Whoever is reviewing these calls in New York looked at the footage and said, no, the guy's safe. No, the guy's out. And they overturned the calls. That's 30 out of nearly 90 challenges. That's 1/3 of the time they're getting the call wrong. And by the way, last night in the Red Sox-White Sox game, and this was against the Red Sox, so I'm not even rallying, oh, the Red Sox are getting screwed. This call went for the Red Sox. There was a play in which Napoli came off the bag retrieving a throw, and they called the guy out at first. And every replay clearly shows Napoli did not have his foot on the bag, which is a fundamental rule of baseball. When you catch the ball before the base runner, your foot has to be on the bag. Well, his foot was off the bag. It might have touched the bag at some point shortly thereafter, but the runner was called out pretty much immediately. They did a review on the replay, and they still said he was out. So even after looking at it twice, they still said he was out. So that could have been one that was overturned that wasn't. So again, that's just the ones they've actually overturned. My point being, umpires are blowing a good chunk of calls, okay? Maybe some of them are minor, maybe some of them really wouldn't have done much in the game, but even that call right there, if it goes the way it's supposed to go, the White Sox get 2 runs on the board instead of 1 when Adam Dunn hits his home run in the next at-bat. It's just stuff like this. If you really think about it, and maybe this doesn't keep up, maybe umpires get their act together, they start making good calls, but right now, they're getting about 15 calls wrong a week, and I realize that's across all the major league teams, all 30 of them. So that's maybe a few games a week that there's been at least one blown call in. Now multiply that times 24 weeks in the season, and figure maybe they only blow 10 calls in those weeks. So you're looking at over 200, maybe even 300 blown calls a year that now, thanks to replay, they'll be done right. But that means every other season without replay, we've been losing those calls. Everybody, whether it was for one team or for another team, it gave someone an unfair advantage or disadvantage because some guy in a black MLB uniform said, nope, he's out, nothing you can do about it. And that just kind of burns me up. Because in a 162-game season, it sounds cliche, but 1 or 2 of those bad calls really can cost you. It can cost you a game, it can cost you some momentum in the game, it can cost you a series, and you could be looking back going, we could have had that. Let's not forget our friend Armando Galarraga. Who's Armando Galarraga? Type it into Wikipedia, because even if you don't just find his page, you'll find a page called Armando Galarraga's Near Perfect Game. Yeah, I thought that was a little weird too. Basically, Armando Galarraga had a perfect game by all intents and purposes, but the umpire decided that the very last play at first base, the runner beat the pitcher to the bag. He didn't. And, as always, the argument ensued. The Detroit Tigers thought he had a perfect game. They started celebrating, and the umpire's like, no, the guy's safe. Even the umpire realized that he made a mistake. This is Jim Joyce, one of my least favorite umpires. And he realized he made the mistake. If we had replay then, that guy would have a perfect game, and that Wikipedia page wouldn't need to be up. That's just my point. Instant replay, has already shown the capacity to fail. There are some downsides. There's the fact that the managers are only allowed 2 challenges, and sometimes it seems like they waste one. And then another close play will come up, and it's like, well, we can't review that because he doesn't have a challenge. It's like, if the goal is to get the calls right, then why pick which ones you want to get right? I mean, I guess it's comparable to the NFL doing a challenge. There could be other calls in NFL games that aren't going well, but they only challenge 1 or 2 a game. And again, I mean, that's understandable. You don't want the manager coming out every time he thinks there's a problem. It could just get very tedious. So I understand putting a limit on it. I think people are just upset right now because it's kind of a new thing. I think as replay gets more and more integrated into baseball, eventually this won't be a problem. Managers will come out occasionally when they need to, just like football. They'll come out and they'll challenge it. It'll be fast, overturned, or it'll be upheld. But I mean, doesn't this at all phase the umpiring union? You guys are getting a quarter or more of your calls wrong. And this is what you do for a living, is make calls, and you're getting that many of them wrong. How many other people here could do a job and get that many things wrong or fail that many times and still be employed and then have the audacity to argue with somebody? What if you're not doing well at your job and the boss says, you know what, I don't think you're doing well. Can you sit there and go, no, I think I am doing well, so sit down, you're out of the game. I don't think that can happen. But that's just all I got. I could go on about this for hours, but replay is a good thing for baseball and a bad thing for Major League umpires, so I am all for it. I look forward to reading your guys' opinions in the comments section on the video. Check me out, Bobby Gaines, Bobby Productions. Got some more live sports stuff coming up for you. Check it out.